Happy Monday, everybody, and greetings from Painted Studio here in beautiful Brookside, Illinois. I'm just outside Chicago for those who don't know me that well. For those who do, sorry you had to hear that. Too bad. I'm here. I have to introduce myself to other people. So, last week we left off with the painting of the pine chest that's back here on my table. But it's Monday, and I have a lot of stuff going on. Trying to get a lot of projects moving along, and if you read my post earlier, I believe it was yesterday, that the way to make money doing finishes is to not just have one piece going in your studio at any one time. Furniture finishing has a lot of dry time in between layers or little bits and pieces that you have to do. So the thing to do is to make sure you have several pieces going at once so that you're not wasting time. And so usually I have 3, 4, sometimes even 5 pieces going in my studio, depending on what they are. If there are a lot of little ones, it's more. So today we're going to be working on a picture frame, a small chair, and my cabinet back here, the chest that I started. Now, as you can see from the other day, we painted it gray and it's now black. I waited for the tinted shellac to dry and put on a coat of black set coat. It needs a second coat, and then I will move on to my more decorative layers, but I wanted to get a good solid base on it. And then the next thing I'm going to work on is this little chair sitting here. It's kind of hard to see in the background. It just sort of looks almost like a step stool, but that's because there's some stuff sitting on it right now that makes it a little hard to see exactly what's going on. I'm sitting here trying to decide whether you all want to watch me put on a coat of black paint. How about I just do part of some black paint on there so you can see my brushing out techniques, and then we will let that part of it dry so that when the lid's dry I can flip it up and do the sides and not have any interference happening in the drying. So I'm going to move me and you to the tripod that's over behind the chest. So you're going to have to be a little patient because there's only one of me down here, and moving things around complicated, and usually I drop something. So let's see if I can do this without dropping it. Oh yay, I didn't drop it, which probably means I'll have butterfingers on the way over here or when I'm putting it in. So here we go. Let's see. Get you loaded in on this one and set this in so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. All right, now the product I use is called Set Coat. Set Coat Black is the color I'm using. For those not familiar with the Faux Effects product line, it is a high bonding priming and color product that dries to the sheen and smoothness of oil paints, which is really important when you're doing certain glazing techniques and stuff. Instead of having your glaze go on and go and suck right into the paint, it smooths across. And I see Rima's joined us. Yay, hi Rima. I know you're getting your nails done right now as you texted me earlier. So, but when I use this for anything, it means I'm getting a good secure bond. And I've already put the shellac on, so the next thing I'm gonna do, and yeah, I could put it in a little dip cup and do that way, but I've got the bucket here. I hate pouring back and forth between containers. And I'm brushing it on. I start in the middle and stretch my paints to the end. The reason I do that is then I don't have big globs of paint on either end here that I have to clean up, and I don't end up with brush strokes in the middle of my passes. So I'm pulling this back and forth. And second coat, usually get really complete coverage. It's not sucking into any primer or anything like that. And then again, a little more dip in and pulling it. It's called stretching the paint. You don't want heavy, thick globs of paint that dry and pool and puddle differently. I want as smooth and even a coat as I can get, especially as a hand-painted finish. You may hear noise in the background. There's all kinds of stuff going on in my building as usual, so forgive any extra noise. I'm just pulling this paint back and forth, making sure I get my edges nice and clean. And yeah, I do check and run my finger along the edges to make sure there's no dribbles. And there we go, pulling it back and forth, making sure I haven't missed a spot. You may not be able to see miss spots the way I can, because the way the light is shining, it's designed to hit dull spots for me to see. And actually, painting black on black isn't too bad, because blacks dry different than when they are wet, so it's easier to see where you've missed. Whites are hard. Okay, I'm working my way around the hardware, and yes, I painted all the hardware completely black because I have other plans for them. And a set coat gives me, especially on the second coat, gives me a nice amount of work time so I can clean up any funny edges I've left for myself. I see somebody's posted something. Unfortunately, it's too far away for me to see. So as soon as I finish painting this, I will read your question or your comment and respond to it. I'm not ignoring you. I just can't see that far because I'm on my phone, and I'm not gifted enough to figure out how to do this two-handed with a second device going over questions and stuff. Plus, I have paint in my hands. I have two hands. One's got paint, one's got a brush. I don't know how I managed the third, because, you know, I haven't grown that extra hand I always say I want to have. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go along this side here. Forgive me, I know you can't really see me. Get this part. Make sure I get all my edges here. And this way I don't get that thing that happens when people brush and they do this, dabbing into the center, and you get all those nasty brush marks. I'm pulling back fully across all the distance, and I get a much smoother lay of paint. And I will do the back here, because when I open this up to do other parts, I want that back painted, smooth, and dry. And I'm going to come around behind the camera. Okay. Sorry, it's either behind the camera or in front of the camera, because going through it, you know, knocks it on the floor. And then I lift the cabinet up. I will check all my edges along here. I'll make sure everything's nice and dry and clean. And I'll have my base coat all set for whatever my next step is. But I try to get, you know, where I've got a corner to catch while everything's still wet, so I don't have any funny spots. Like I can see I got a little bit of a funny spot right along here. And we're good. This one is, I know it's backwards, but it's a 30, and you can see it says Mega Brush. So that's what I use. They run like $11, $12, $13. I know my hand's in front of the camera. I'm putting it back on a tripod so that you can see what I'm doing next. But they run, like I said, $10, $12, $13, and they go, they have them in 30s, they have them in 40s, and then they have them in 50s, I think. So they go, you know, like 1 inch, 1.5 inches, up to 2 inches, and they're really nice to work with. That's my personal preference for furniture brushes. A lot of companies out there, they make a lot of furniture brushes. I'm not saying that, excuse me, had a little bit of paint on my fingernail. See, I just got my manicure done, and I'm sure if Martin was watching, he'd tease me about the Easter egg colors of my nails. But I wanted to get the paint off of it. Those are my personal preference for it. They don't hold too much product. They don't hold too little product. The bristles are compact and finer. But being that flat, narrow brush, I find it easier to get into small spaces with it, so I'm not kind of jamming it in there and then getting a lot of bad tap marks that I don't care for on on any of my painted pieces. It's nice and flat so I can get in tight and it looks nice and smooth. Now give me just 1 second. I have to roll away to get some gloves. And I'm back. Geez, I'm running out of gloves. I think I'm down to 2 pairs or 3 pairs. Time to go to the beauty supply store. We're gonna work on, I need gloves and I need cheesecloth for my next piece. So hang on, cheesecloth is over here. And I'm back. As you can tell, I'm on my little rolling stool. I think everything should be on wheels. My whole life would be so much simpler. So the next piece I'm showing you is a small oak children's chair that I picked up at, I don't know, a garage sale or something years ago. And again, it's one of those pieces that has sat in my furniture storage of project pieces forever. And I just needed to get it out, and I had a bunch of ideas going recently, so I'm going to get it going, and I'm going to show you what I've done. So down here, let's see, this is the back of the chair. Let me pull you around to the front. Yes, we're moving again. Give you a view of the top of my head. How nice of me. All right, so here we go. A little better view of the chair. Project piece that I decided to start on. It was very, very, very yellow oak, very beat up, very scuffed, very stained, very scarred. I cleaned it to test what's on there. I think there's probably a little good old-fashioned polyurethane on there. I sanded the bejeebers out of it because there's also a lot of chipping, so there was a lot of places that if I could catch cheesecloth on it, I knew it would be something that would be too rough for me to present to a potential client, so I sanded it a lot. And then I mixed some Stain and Seal ebony and Stain and Seal cherry, or antique cherry, together and mixed FX thinner into it and created a stain for this surface because I have plans for it, but I wanted to take that yellow away. And I've let it sit on here for a good half an hour, 45 minutes. And now I'm wiping it back. And again, because I'm treating it like stain and not a paint product, ooh, that came out really pretty. I like that color. The yellow oak was too yellow for me. And then the cherry was going to turn it orange because it was too red. So I mixed some black into it, and I got this gorgeous rich color. And look how it popped the grain. That in itself is gorgeous. I know oak grain is not always in favor in style right now. Everybody's taking everything oak and changing it to something else. I just don't love how yellow oak is. I'd like to change that color. So look how rich and pretty this color is. Can you see that? Let me push it down a little more so you can see it better. And get a little light on there. That's really a pretty color. And I coated this whole thing with it. What happens is Stain and Seal has an acrylic binder in it. And so if you don't add something like FX thinner to it, it sets up really fast. And it makes it almost impossible to work on it like a real stain because it dries too fast. So FX thinner, you add as much as you want of it to your Stain and Seal. It will make your color shearer, but what it really does is extend the open time for you to allow it to sit on a wood surface to penetrate and then still be able to go right back to it because the acrylics won't have set up in it yet. It's like an extender for open time in Stain and Seal. And I'm going to wipe this off. I know watching somebody wipe stain off of something isn't terribly exciting, but I've had this on here for, like I said, about half an hour. And I didn't mix quite as much FX thinner in as I sometimes do. And I know if I don't get it off soon, it will all be hard and dry on it. And I can see that there are comments coming, and I'm not ignoring them, but again, I have the camera angled so that you can see what I'm doing, and I can't necessarily read the questions and the comments at that point. So what I'm doing here is I'm going back, I'm wiping all the surfaces, getting the excess stain off. And you know, the cool thing is, because the way I had this planned, if I hated this, I had another plan B going. But I don't hate it. I'm actually really happy with how it came out. Yeah, I can see it's starting to set up a little bit, so I'm having to work a little harder in a couple spots to wipe it back. Yeah. A little more work. It's okay. Whoever said furniture was easy lied. This made this really pretty stain color that I'm really happy with. Let's get this finished off. And I did get under and behind all the rails. When I'm staining, I try to do as much at once as possible because I don't want to double stain certain areas and have them end up looking funny because they're super dark compared to other areas. And I gotta roll this around a little bit. I had this actually up on chairs when I put, or up on cans when I put the Stain and Seal mixture on. And that's what's all underneath here, and I know you're seeing nothing but my arm right now, but I'm holding it so that it doesn't fall over. And then the nice part is, this will actually be, as the name of the product implies, sealed. The acrylic binders, once the FX thinner evaporates, the acrylic binders in here will firm up and seal the whole thing up nicely. So I'm really happy with the way that color came out. It provides the color background for what I'm going to do next, which involves leafing, because I'm on a leaf kit right now. That's kind of where I am. And I'm back. Oh, Martin's teasing me about my shoes. Yes, these are my leopard shoes that I use in the studio when I teach as well, because I accidentally spilled paint on them down here one day when they weren't supposed to be studio shoes, and well, we all know how that goes. It turns things into studio shoes. Same way, you know, good jeans become paint jeans, and good shirts become paint shirts, and quite frankly, I should probably have paint glasses because I spray enough. And I'm gonna go, oh, I'm using your favorite, bear and spruce tree tarp. Yeah, that's my son's old flannel sheets. It just happened to be in reach. Martin picks on me because it doesn't look professional to use an old sheet. And I'm like, well, I might as well get some more use out of what I paid for. It's not on a job site, it's in my children's chair. And my third project that I'm working on for the rest of the day today is this picture frame that I happen to be given. And let me fold this down so you can see it. It's actually quite large. It's a mirror, and it goes from here, and it's, you know, about the length of a full-length mirror, a little shorter. So, and normally, if I was doing restorative work, I'd be looking at the broken pieces of the frame and creating molds so that I could fix it. I'm not doing that with this. I'm creating a kind of a artwork piece out of it, accepting the flaws in it and doing other things that will camouflage it. So I'm just gessoed up where the areas that had a lot of chipping and damage. I put gesso on it and sanded the gesso so that it was smoother, but I didn't really work that hard to fix it. From what I can tell, if you can rail you back down here, looking at this frame, and I did a lot of checking it out, this was a molded gesso frame. I thought maybe there was gold leaf under here, but I was wrong. There was a black primer coat, and I believe originally this was white because this green is not the original color. I could find other layer of paint under it, but that's about it. And it's gotten some serious damage. Whoops. It didn't like me turning my camera that way. So it's gotten some serious damage in corners over here and back in here. And let's do this way. It doesn't want to turn. Down here at this end, I don't know if it'll open. No. Down at this end, there has been substantially more damage to the gesso, probably because this is the end that it was sitting in storage, and then this is the end that I stored it. A lot of gesso chipping and stuff, and I just put fresh gesso on it. I used acrylic gesso, not the homemade gesso with rabbit skin glue and whiting and that sort of thing. I don't really do a whole lot of traditional gesso making. It's kind of a pain in the ass, and I don't use enough of it to make it worth the time for me. If I was doing a lot more traditional gilding, that would be different. So I just put some acrylic gesso in here, smoothed it out, sanded it out, and embraced the flaws in it. I'm not even changing the color here because I don't worry if the leaf exposes a little of this, because I know what I have planned, which can be, I hope, is interesting. We'll find out, because if I screw this up, oh well, I'll have to do something else. So we're back over here. So I'm leaving this green. This is actually a good base for what the idea is I have, and I'm using aluminum leaf. I know this is backwards. It's the way when you flip the camera towards you, it works. I had a ton of aluminum leaf because I at one point was silver leafing everything. The nice thing was with aluminum leaf doesn't tarnish. So, and it doesn't patina. So I have my choice of water-based or oil-based top coats on here. It won't hurt it either way, unlike real silver, which has to have very specific top coats on it. Otherwise, it will turn gray. And that's all I need, is something turning gray when I'm working with the base of green. It's not what I'm looking for. So what I've done is, now after I've gessoed it, I put on a coat of Dux 3-hour quick size. I could use water-based. I have used water-based before, but right now I wanted to use oil-based because I know exactly how long I'm going to need to work with this, and I don't have to guess. This is a little more consistent for me in its open time than a water-based hard drying size is. I needed to make sure that I can get through this whole thing and not have to resize. Also, with the oil-based size, I can get this on super, super thin, and it'll still stay tacky for several hours. If I get a water-based size on that dries super thin, it also dries too fast for me necessarily to get everything done the way I want to get it done. And I just love my oil size. It's one of the few oil-based products I work with. So I'm going to be starting with that. The other thing I wanted to show, I also put a coat of shellac on all the gesso just to make sure I had a smooth coating on it, because gesso's porous. Even the acrylic gesso is porous, and so putting size directly on fresh gesso, I would have lost adhesion in those areas. I needed a slicker surface, so I sealed everything up with a 2-pound cut of shellac. What I mean by 2-pound cut, when it's the number of pounds of shellac flakes per gallon of denatured alcohol if you were making your own. For example, actually I may be off on pounds. I'm trying to remember the ounces from the chart that I usually have sitting here, and I took the chart down and went upstairs, and the reason the chart's there is so I don't have to remember things. But basically, shellac comes in a lot of different colors. This is blonde de-waxed shellac flakes. This is not, it's very similar to what you buy from Zinsser in the hardware store, but not exactly. Zinsser is a blonde de-waxed shellac, but it's thicker than what I make in my studio. And when you can make anything from a 1/2-pound cut to a 4-pound cut, and use it. Traditional for what I'm doing is 2 pounds, so that meant for 12 ounces of water, or sorry, 12 ounces of denatured alcohol, I would put 3 ounces of shellac in, or 3 ounces of denatured alcohol. Sorry, the shellac is probably messing with my brain. So for 3 ounces of these flakes, I have 12 ounces of denatured alcohol, and then I pour the shellac flakes in, and then you start shaking it up and stirring it around, and it all dissolves. Zinsser's is thicker. It's what's called a 3-pound cut. So instead of 3 ounces of flakes to 12 ounces of water, it would be 4 ounces of flakes to 4 ounces of flakes to 12 ounces of denatured alcohol. I keep wanting to call it water because I'm so used to water-based products. And if I had some here in my studio, I could take it and thin it with denatured alcohol and use it. I like making my own because I can get anything from a ruby shellac, which is very dark flakes, to the blonde shellac, which, while it doesn't look light here, is very, very pale when it goes on. It's like a blonde color. So I like making my own shellac, and it's not expensive. You can get the shellac, and this way it never goes bad, so you don't make more than you need. I've had these shellac flakes, I don't know, a year or two. Then I mix up whatever I need into a container, and I don't mix up more than I can use in, say, I think the advice says 3 months. I can usually stretch it for 6 to 8 with a little extra denatured alcohol in it. But that's a personal preference. If you use Zinsser's, that's fine. I've used it plenty of times. So anyway, back to the gilding. I've shellacked what I needed to shellac, then I put a very thin coat of my Dux on, and when I put it on, I sort of flood the texture that's on here, and then I brush it back to get it out of the recess. Because if I leave it thick in the recesses, my thin parts will be ready to gild, but my recesses won't be, and so it'll look funny, and it wastes dry time. So if I wait for the recesses to cure up, then the thin spots will end up being too dry. So now I've got my gilder's pad, my gilder's knife, I have a couple gilder's tips, and of course I have leaf. So what I'm going to do is start using the aluminum leaf on here. I'm gonna work the camera angle so that you can see what I'm doing. Let's see, let's turn this way a little bit. Okay, because I'm going to start at this end. Being left-handed, that's a little easier for me. And this has, as you can see from the reflection, this has a little texture. It looks a little like a braid, but actually up close, it's more like a really soft acanthus leaf. Huh, I don't know what I did to that pack, but it's all chopped up and weird in there. So let's see what else I have in different packages. All right, so I'm gonna take a piece of aluminum leaf, and if you notice, the size is different from when you've seen me use the gold. The gold is much small, real gold is much smaller. And can you see my hand over there? Sort of, not really. Let's see if I can angle this up so you can see a little better. All right. I know this is going to be an awkward for you to see, angle for you to see, because the frame is actually in the way of what I need to show you. So first thing I do is take some Vaseline, you know, generic Vaseline, doesn't matter, petroleum jelly. Vaseline's a brand, petroleum jelly's the product. I know, it's like Kleenex. I take a little, I rub a very thin amount on my arm. You do not want this heavy greasy, you want it almost to be like you just slightly moisturized your skin. I've got the aluminum leaf on my Gilder's pad, and I'm actually going to cut it into smaller pieces because this is it's bigger than I need. Things like aluminum leaf tend to be a little more brittle than gold. Gold is very soft and malleable. That's my word for the day, malleable. And there we go, I got it all cut apart. And I'm going to use my tip. This is one I got from Pierre Finkelstein, and it's made out of sable, which I love. And I'm going to take not just one, let's see if I can get this to do it the way I want it to do, or if I'm going to have the infamous silver leaf issues where I can't get anything on it. Well, if it's not going to grab on the tip, well, then I'm going to do it this way. I have no shame. I take it and I'm going to drop it on, and then I'm going to take a second piece and drop it over. Why? Because this has a lot of detail on it, and when I tamp it down like this, the second piece will force itself into the crevices and details that get missed when you put on the first piece. I'm probably still going to have to go back in here into these little details. I wish there's a way for this to let me zoom. There we go. Oh, it's letting me do it. Yay. There we go. Okay. So I'm putting that in here and I'm tamping it. And yeah, it's shedding leaf. And then I'm going to take another piece here. Not everybody can do this with their bare fingers like I can. I have really super dry skin, so things don't tend to stick to me. And just tapping it in. Let me see if anybody, nope, nobody's had any questions so far. And I'm just tapping this down in. See, I'm actually really okay with this green popping through a little bit. That was the intent. That's why I didn't change the color. Each time I do stuff like this, I learn a little more about doing it with the camera, because, you know, this is, painting is my first gig, not camera work. And right here, this is where I missed size. And that's okay. I'll go back and put more on later. And this process continues on and on, where I take another piece of leaf out of my envelope. I know that was exciting. Look at the top of the envelope. And I think that's the end of that envelope. Maybe I don't have as much aluminum leaf as I thought I did. So I'm taking taking more leaf. Now I got to get this to zoom back out. I'm taking more aluminum leaf, cutting it in squares, and we'll proceed down the entire frame and move it around so that I've gotten the whole leaf framed. And again, this is a creative piece. This is not restorative, so I'm not worried too much about the flaws. I actually have two pieces in my hand right now. I just grabbed them both, and I'm going to tamp it. And by the end of this afternoon, my entire studio will be covered in aluminum skewings. Skewings are these little bits, the pieces that shrivel up and come off of something when you're gilding it. My friends who do traditional restorative gilding would be horrified by some of how I do stuff. But I call this creative gilding, not restoration gilding, including the fact that I'm sticking my hands in it. But I sometimes when my hands are dry like they are now, I'd be a great burglar. Nobody'd ever see who it was because I never leave any fingerprints behind. And this is a very patience-making kind of project. I try not to gild when I'm in a bad mood because my motions are jagged and irregular and I don't get the results I want. This is doing pretty well. You see how nicely this is coming out, and little bits of green are starting to show here and there. Let's see, you can see it like right in here. A little bit of that green is popping through, and that's perfect for what I want. Although I will put some size on this spot because that's a little more green showing than I wanted. And I'll get back into here. I have a couple spots on the back of here that I missed. But I'm not worried about that too much. And let's see, I got a little more here. Another piece of leaf. And yeah, I got some more leaf in here. Okay. Let me cut it up a little. And you see the little pad that I have, most gilders have a bigger pad. This is actually a pad that was given to me in my first class, and it's about the same size as a full-size piece of composition or aluminum leaf. A little awkward to work on for bigger pieces, but you know, I'm okay with it right now. The only problem with these like aluminum and composition leaf is that they tend to be a little brittle, so cutting them can be a challenge. Okay, so I will take my piece here and take my next piece here, and I've doubled over top, and I'm just patting it in. Actually, what I did by over here, I have a little piece that got stuck. So so I'll use that there. Tear it off, and I'll get this corner here. Tear it off. People who do a lot of gilding full-time, and it's all they do, have spent decades perfecting their technique. Me, I'm back and forth. I love doing it, but I don't always need to be doing it because I have clients who want something else. So my technique is a little more haphazard, and you know what? I can live with that. I don't know about anybody else, but you know, when I'm doing my own pieces, it's about making me happy with the result, and then hoping somebody likes it enough to buy it. When it's for a client, that's different. But usually when it's a client, they're so familiar with my styles and techniques that there's really very little problem with me doing something different than everybody else does it. That there, and oops, I dropped it. So I'm going to put that one down over here. You know, a lot of times people working with compo leaf and stuff like that worry about getting the oils from their hands on things and having it tarnish. Yeah, I'm not one of those people. I'm the one who, I need somebody, if I wanted to have a little bit of tarnishing happening, I need somebody else to come and rub their hands on things, because my hands won't do it. And I'm going to cut up some more pieces here. To cut today. There we go. And take this piece, and here we go onto the back, and lay it over the top. It always takes a little while for me to get my technique down, just like anything else. Like if you're doing a room, you got to get your hand going, and that can always take a few minutes. If I start at one of the damaged spots, nobody will notice that was where I'm getting my hand going. So I'm going to tap this all in, and I'm going to continue on around the entire frame. And I have to do this today. I have to get this done today because the size will be hard tomorrow, and I don't want to contend with that. I don't want to have to resize something halfway through the project. So here's this piece on here, this size, and then I'm going to lay it over the front. And I'm tapping it in. And there's a vague hum going on in the background right now. One of the all heard me talking about the construction in my neighborhood. Well, the fun thing to wake up to this morning was all the curbs they put in this week, last Friday, they pulled out this morning for some reason, and we were watching it happening in the morning on Friday, thinking, nobody looks really happy with how this curb got laid in, but they kept going at it. So first thing Monday morning, they ripped it all back up again. Yay. That was entertaining. Alrighty. So, that's a lot of me. There we go. So that's how this process is going to go, and I am really pleased with the way this is looking so far. It's looking exactly like I want it to. Once I get all this leaf down, I'm going to come back with a soft cloth and rub it down in so the details are all finished into the carvings in here and then all the extra little bits of leaf, and it'll be much shinier. Now, if I was doing traditional water gilding, it would be over bowl, which is sort of a clay-like product, and I'd be using a water and gelatin size. But I'm not doing that with this piece because I'd have to re-gesso the whole thing and recarve the whole thing, and it's just not where I was going with this. I'm going to take this as a more creative approach and enjoy that process. So sometimes I go traditional, sometimes I go really in another direction. Again, my friends who are very traditional look at what I do sometimes and shake their heads. My friends who are the little more on the experimental side always get a kick out of seeing what kind of mess I'll make and if it works. I have no fear of making mistakes because mistakes are something that you learn from. And better I make this mistake in my studio than for a client. And I'm almost always pleasantly surprised. I have very few, after this many years, truly big failures. The surprise this bunch of furniture go around was the cabinet back here and all that gooey stuff that was on it. And by the way, I did get a very nice message from my friend Kate Whitson in Scotland helping me figure out what it was. We think that it was a weird combination of either tung oil or Danish oil, and then it got waxed over. The stringiness and the elasticity of the weird way it pulled away, plus the color and the challenge to get it off, were the clues. I'd never experienced it before because most of the pieces I work on don't have that kind of a raw wood finish on it. I usually have something that's been stained and very clearly varnished or shellacked. So I think that kind of covers everything I wanted to go over today. I don't want to keep everybody on forever. Sometimes I get these videos going and they're like an hour and a half long. Right now I'm working quickly on a bunch of things. I don't know if sitting here and watching me silver leaf the entire frame while I babble away is all that entertaining on a Monday. So I'm going to spare that for you. And meanwhile, I'm going to put on a little music and kind of zen out because it's been a little bit of a busy couple of days and we're working hard around here getting projects done. And I love my leafing time. I love sitting here with music on and nothing else to think about but laying on the metal and making myself happy. And sorry about that. Again, that's my neighbor space where their voicemail is picking up and I cannot get them to turn the volume down. So, oh well. Any questions while anybody's still watching me? All of one or two people. Anyway, I will talk to you later. With the next step, you'll see where I'm going with this. I will have the cabinet completely painted and we will do some Japanese silver leaf on that. And then we are going to do some other interesting things with the chairs. But I think each day I'm going to work on, when I video with you all, I'm going to work on a little something for each one. There's going to be a lot of metal leaf this week. So if you want to watch me mess around with leaf and see the good and the bad and the ugly, this is the time to do it. And I think that covers everything for today. So have a great week. Happy Monday. I don't know where you are, but where I am, it's gorgeous out. And I want you all to have a good time creating wonderful things all week. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.